In this supplemental video, I want to show you how to calculate the first and second year data for the portfolio without a drip, as well as the holding period for the entire 2 years without a drip. It'll be easiest, I think, to do the first year without a drip. So I'm going to start my formula. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is just over here type what we're after and the process that I'm going to follow. So what I need to do is find the total value of all 5 stocks, assuming no dividends were reinvested. And then I need that as of September 2013 and September 2012. So that would be the answer for cell G4. So I'm just going to go through all 5 of my stock tabs, which actually you can't see now that I've noticed it. The recording doesn't go that far down on my screen. But I've got my 5 different individual stock tabs, my first being IBM. And I want the total value of the portfolio on September of 2013. At that point, IBM was trading at the value in B14. And I owned, and I got some dividends. So I want to add all those dividends. I got the dividends, I just didn't reinvest them. So I'm not going to assume that I purchased more shares. I just received the dividends in cash. So I'm highlighting this entire range from September 13 to October 12. Because that's the time period that if dividends were paid, I want them included. And then I'm going to close that parentheses for the sum, open parentheses, and I'm going to close the parentheses for the IBM entire section, open parentheses, and then I need to multiply that by the number of shares that I bought when I first formed the portfolio, and that is located in cell D26. And now I'm going to close this entire portion of the IBM. And now I'm going to go do my second stock, and I need to add that second stock to it. I'm going to do the exact same process for my second stock, which is Perfect World. And I know I need 2 open parentheses, so I'm going to pop those up there. So I need Perfect World's price on September 2013 because I added my parentheses by typing them. It's messing up that tab label, so I just needed to fix it. I need to add any dividends that were paid from September 13 through October 12, so I'm highlighting that range, closing that parentheses, closing the next parentheses, and now multiplying by the number of shares that I bought at the very beginning, which is in D26. Close Perfect World's final parentheses, do the same thing for my third stock, which is STV. So STV's price on September 13 plus the sum of all of STV's dividends for that first year. Close that parentheses, and then the next parentheses needs closing too, then multiply by the number of shares that I bought when I first formed the position, and then close all of STV's parentheses, open 2 parentheses for my fourth stock, which is Corning. Corning's September 13 price plus the sum of Corning's dividends from September 13 through October 12, which I actually messed up, so I need to redo. And then close those 2 parentheses, multiply by the number of shares I originally bought for Corning, close the final parentheses for Corning, and do the same thing for Ruger. Ruger's September 13 price. Ruger didn't have any dividends, so I'm just going to skip that part. And then multiply by Ruger's beginning number of shares, and then close the parentheses. I'm going to hit enter here, even though my equation is not complete. And this is not, while the final answer will be a parentheses, this partial answer isn't. It should be a dollar amount. And the reason I'm looking at it is I want to see if it makes sense. I want to see if I made a mistake somewhere along the way. And it looks pretty good. I know that I started with 50,000 at the beginning of 2012, or September of 2012, and my portfolio has been doing okay that first year, so I should have more than 50,000. I don't know that this is perfect, but it looks like it's calculated correctly. So that's the total of all 5 stocks, assuming no dividends were reinvested. And then what I need to do is subtract the initial, actually let me put it this way, subtract the value assuming no dividend reinvestment as of September 2012. And then divide by that same value. Well, for this year, this part right here is easy to calculate because it was our starting value, and we know our starting value was 50,000. So I'm just going to pop up to that equation, subtract 50,000, close my parentheses, and then I actually need to open a parentheses at the very beginning. So now it takes that 57,000 approximately that we had, subtracts 50,000, gets about 7,000, and now it needs to divide that by 50,000, the initial starting value, to get a percentage. And that is a percentage, so I want to format it like a percentage and carry it out to 2 decimals. Now the second year is not as easy. The interesting thing about the second year, though, and I'm going to label this first year without drip, else I'll just say no drip. The second year, what we need, just going to copy this down here. Well, I messed up. That usually happens. Try it again. So we want, for the second year, we want the total value of all 5 stocks, assuming no dividends were reinvested as of September 14 and September 13. And we want to subtract the value assuming no dividend reinvestment as of September 13 and divide by that value. So the numerator of the process is very similar. Instead of going though from or finding the value on September the 13, I need to find the value on September 14. So I'm going to do something kind of interesting. I'm going to go to Insert, Text Box. Just going to put me a text box right here so y'all can see it easily. And the thing is, I don't really want to click through all of those 5 stock tabs again and click on the ranges and multiply by the prices and all that. I'm trying to be efficient. So what I'm going to do is just copy this formula that we just did and paste it into this text box. It doesn't change any of the cell references. If I had copied this formula from this cell to this cell, it would change all my cell references, and that's not what I want. And I didn't want to bother making them absolute because they do need changing. There's no quick, easy way to copy it from this cell to this cell and have it work. But instead of working with, so I'm going to pop over to one of my stocks, this is IBM. I actually need this value now and the sum of the dividends for this time period. So I need B2 and C2 through C13. So I'm going to pop over to my summary table. And now what I'm going to just do is edit them right here. So I'm switching out my B14 to B2 and my C14 to C2 and my C25 to C13. Here was where I was multiplying by the number of shares that I originally purchased. I still want to do that because I'm assuming no dividend reinvestment, so my number of shares won't have changed. So I'm just going to go through every stock reference and change the cell references in this tab. I know this isn't particularly exciting. That might be an understatement. Hopefully I'm not making a mistake. Oh, and Ruger had no dividends, so there's no dividend thing to change there. Just going to take a quick look at it because I don't want it to be wrong. Making sure I changed cell references everywhere I wanted to. Now, the next issue is my divisor is not 50,000 anymore. My divisor is actually the value of my 5 stocks as of September 2013, assuming no reinvestment of dividends. I cannot take this value and sum it for all 5 of my stocks because that assumes dividend reinvestment. I'm going to have to calculate the value. So basically I need to take this September of 13 price, multiply it by multiply by the number of shares I originally purchased. So I'm actually going to just pop over to somewhere in the summary table, doesn't matter where, and I'm just going to start that process. So basically I'm doing the process of figuring out what this number should be. It's not 50,000 anymore. So I've started my formula. I'm going to pop over to IBM. I need IBM's price, September 13 times the number of shares that I bought, plus Perfect World's price of September 13 times the number of shares that I bought. Now, I don't need to do parentheses this time because of the order of operations that Excel does. It always does multiplication before it does addition. So it's going to do everything in the right order without grouping in parentheses. Then I need STV's price times the number of shares originally purchased, plus Corning's price of September 13 times the number of shares originally purchased, and the same for Ruger. When I hit enter, there is that value. So somewhere along the way, from September of 12 to September 13, ignoring dividends, my 50,000 dropped to 48,923. Now, that's not what this number says. This number says I have a positive return, but this number includes dividends. This number does not include dividends. This number does not include reinvesting my dividends, but it does include the original receipt of the dividends as cash. This number does not. So what I need to do is pop this number in to replace this 50,000. I'm not going to just type the number in. What I'm going to do is just copy this formula, Control C, and I'm going to paste it and put it in parentheses right here. and then get rid of that 50,000. And actually, I'm going to add I'd accidentally deleted a parentheses. I need this parentheses to close out this one, I think. And then my denominator is going to be this exact same number, the 48,923. But again, I'm not going to type it in. I'm going to copy it. Why am I copying it and not just typing the number in? I might have made a mistake, and it'll be a whole lot easier to fix the formula than to figure out what's wrong with it and then retype the number in. Plus, if the number is hardwired into the equation, I might forget that and forget to change the number should I discover that it's wrong. All right, now here's the big test. I'm going to copy this entire formula and paste it here into the second year. And it is a percentage, so I'm going to format it like it. And one way for us to get a good idea whether or not this number is right is to compare the second year without a drip to the second year with a drip. Your numbers will probably be fairly similar. You can see mine are vastly different. The reason mine is vastly different is because of STV. STV pays quite large dividends relative to its price. So if you look at, let me zoom in a little bit. I don't know if y'all can see it that well on the screen. Notice that in November of 2012, STV paid a dividend that was actually higher than its price. Look what happened to the number of shares when I reinvested them. It went from 3,500 to about 7,500. STV pays a huge dividend relative to its price, and most companies don't do that. That's causing fairly large differences in my highlighted returns. And also these two. These two should be fairly similar, and they actually are. But y'all's will probably be even more similar. Okay, now the holding period return for the entire 2 years without a drip, I've actually created part of those. Oh, I probably shouldn't have erased that. I've already created part of the formula that we need. We need the value as of September 14, which is here in the second year without a drip. So this portion of the equation will give us the value as of September 14, assuming dividends were not reinvested. So I'm just going to copy it and paste it, and then subtract my initial value as of September 12, because this is the holding period return for the entire 2 years. Well, in this case, I can just type it in. It's 50,000 because that was our starting value. Close the parentheses for the entire numerator, and then divide by 50,000. And then I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. And don't forget to put an equal sign in front to make it a formula. And again, that is a percentage. And again, I've got a huge difference between my two holding period returns with and without a drip, but that's only because STV pays that huge dividend. Y'all's differences between these two holding period returns shouldn't be nearly as great. I'd say just a couple of percentage points probably, but that's not a guarantee.